So hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Macdonald, Principal Information Consultant with Macdonald. Can everyone hear me okay at the back? Okay, great. So like Richard was saying, I think we're both at the university at the same time. I think you've aged a lot better than me, but yeah, I was at university when the Egan report came out as well, and I remember the excitement at the time that this was really going to be a new way that the industry was going to work, and it was all going to change, and that initially inspired me on my journey to what is now known as BIM. But 20 years later, I think we're in a position where there's really a tipping point, as Richard was saying, and that we've got the real potential to actually make a change this time. Okay, so as Richard was saying, there was a report came out about a year or two ago from the Institution of Civil Engineers, and the idea was that we're moving from a transactional-based approach to delivering infrastructure to an enterprise-based approach with the capable owner at the heart of that. And it's all enabled by integrators rather than us all working in silos. And to get there, we need to work in next slide. Okay. And the aim of this is to move towards an outcomes-based approach to infrastructure deliveries, where we're looking at the ultimate customer. So rather than looking at the next person in the supply line, we're actually looking at citizens as the end users of all of our infrastructure. How do we deliver a better deal for them? How do we deliver better outcomes, rather than just focusing on delivering, a piece of infrastructure for now and then moving on to the next project? So there needs to be an environment in place to make this happen. So there's different aspects that the Institution of Civil Engineers is looking at, from alignment of commercial returns. So how do we change our commercial models so that we actually value and reward extra effort that our suppliers go to in delivering infrastructure? So if you're supplying extra pieces of information, for example, how do you reward that? How do you benefit that long-term approach to partnership in terms of infrastructure delivery and long-term operations and maintenance? So this time, I think one of the problems with some of the previous reports that have come out over the years is just, well, it's partly down to timing. I think we're at a tipping point now that there's this sort of worldwide consensus that things can be done in a different way. We've got all the technology is sort of in the place where it can really benefit us, and we're seeing lots of new ways, disruptive technologies coming out there. If we look at the example of BIM Level 2 in the UK, that was one of the largest clients in the UK, the British government, that's responsible for something like 40% of new build work in the UK, saying, I want you to work this way, or we want you to work this way, and that has a real impact on the industry. So what the ICE's done is bring together a group of the largest infrastructure clients in the UK, that you can see them represented on this slide. And collectively, they're responsible for over £20 billion worth of infrastructure investment over the next few years. So if this group of clients say this is how we want to work and we're going to get together to make it happen, then they've got that real power. It's not just a report going out there and saying we're not in a good way and then nothing happens. So it's all about collaboration, providing a single voice to both industry and government, and really sort of making this change happen. So as part of Project 13, and Richard gave an overview of it, there's 5 different strands to making this happen. So we've got governance, integration, and organisation sitting at the core. And then the capable owners, so how do we get owners to actually sort of demand the change that they need? And all of this is supported by digital transformation. And they identified 3 different stages. So they've acknowledged that it's not possible just to go to that fully functioning enterprise approach in one hit. So they've established 3 different stages of collaboration maturity. So simple collaboration is just working with maybe one partner and working together. Then you get to a more integrated stage of collaboration, and then you get to that fully functioning, high-performing enterprise. So what they said was, well, we need to work out where we are as an industry to start with, so we need to carry out a benchmarking exercise. And so how do we go about that? So in Macdonald's, we decided this was really important to our clients and to the industry, and so we put our time and money into this and sponsored a digital transformation work stream. So our team developed a benchmarking matrix to assess all the different members of the infrastructure client group and establish what level they were at in terms of readiness for digital transformation. So we looked at multiple different matrices that were out there, and then we developed our own based on best practice. So first of all, we had to define what digital actually meant, because it can mean lots of different things to different people. So first of all, we said it's about recognizing that value from information can deliver better customer outcomes. So again, it's focusing on that outcomes approach, the end user. It's also about valuing the virtual as well as the physical. So your virtual asset, your digital twin should be as much value as the physical asset, and sometimes can deliver more value. And it's also about recognizing that new way of working that was sort of, first of all, flagged up in that Egan report, and now we're actually seeing happen in the enterprise approach. And it's looking at a whole systems thinking approach to delivering our infrastructure and operating our infrastructure. And within that new way of working, we've also got to move towards that culture of innovation and collaboration, openness, which is quite challenging for our industry. So within the matrix, we separated it out into 6 key categories that when we were developing this matrix, we had to make it sufficiently flexible to be able to work for all of those quite varied client members of the infrastructure client group. But all of them they have to deal with customers at some level. They have leadership strategy in place. Their commercial approach, how do we move from just rewarding hours worked and just outputs to rewarding outcomes. Capability, are you thinking about digital as being at the core of your company? Is it important to every role in your company, or is it just that you see it as a function of IT? How do you deliver your assets? How do you use digital to help you do that? And then how do you manage your assets long term? So they're the kind of 6 key categories, and you can see the sort of key questions for each matrix in this chart. So within that, we took the 3 different stages of collaboration that the infrastructure client group had identified, and then we added 2 more. So we had the 0 at the beginning, which is basically saying you're not doing anything that's different to the way you've always done it, basically. And then we identified a 4th column that was really a sort of aspirational level that you could go to. So I've just highlighted just one snippet from the customers one here because it would be quite difficult to read. But what we did was we sent the matrix out to all of the infrastructure client group members, and then we said, can you get the people together that can answer these questions? And they had to work left to right. So some clients, we would then go out and carry out workshops to moderate so that we would make sure that all the results were consistent and comparable across sectors. And so you would start from left to right, and then you'd have to tick off everything in the first column, and then you could move on to the next one. And in some of them, it's actually quite a big leap to go from column to column. So we then asked them to sort of say, are you about halfway through the column, or are you full end? So there's 6 key matrices in total. I won't try and tempt PowerPoint by zooming into these at the moment. But if you go to the report, we've published the report at project13.motmac.com. The website's also down at the bottom of the slide. So if anyone's interested, you can log in, you can get a copy of the report. And we've also got all the detailed results in there. So I'll just go through some of the main recommendations that we came out with. So I'm quite proud that now I started at uni, Egan report, now I've actually contributed to my own report. So it's hopefully this one has some impact. So the first key recommendation was understand who your customers are and what they want. So it was actually quite interesting to me when we would go out to every client member of the ICG, and the first question we would ask was, who are your customers? And that was actually quite a difficult question for a lot of them to answer. So what we found was that water companies tended to do quite well in the scoring, and they've got a clear line of sight to their end customer, and they're also being challenged by their regulator to show how they use digital to actually have a positive impact on their customers' lives. Whereas other industries, they're governed by regulators, and so an 8-year regulatory cycle, they don't really have any kind of connections to that end customer or citizen, so it's really hard to then instigate change. So if you can't get that through line of sight to that ultimate customer, it's very difficult to have that change happen. Second one was to embrace digital transformation as key to business success. So this one, we noticed sort of 3 different types of clients. So you'd either have clients where the management level were really keen to implement change, and they maybe had a strategy in place but no kind of plans to implement it. Other clients would have a core at the bottom of the company, I guess in terms of levels or hierarchy. They were really keen, like perhaps the younger people coming through, but then there was no support from up above. And then the other type of client was just where there were pockets across the companies, but there were silos, and it was really difficult for them to work together. So it really needs to be infused throughout the company or organization to have that success. So related to that was breaking down the data silos and better understanding whole life performance. So because this survey was bringing together people from multiple different parts of each organization, a lot of the time we were introducing people that had never met. And they all had different systems, so there's a lot of, particularly for the larger owners, there's lots of legacy systems. They don't talk to each other. So you get silos between people and silos between systems. And I think even if we actually start to do the boring stuff of getting our data housekeeping in order and in a form that we can actually then have some interoperability happening, that would make a huge difference to our industry alone. So keep the aspirations high, but get the basics right. So again, that's related to getting all that housekeeping in order. It's great to be thinking about drones and digital twins and everything else, but you need to actually get some of the basic foundations in place, and that can make a huge difference to your organization itself. Information security was a really big one. A lot of people are just sort of brushing it under the carpet or not thinking about it. Or they think that by having an IT team that's dedicated to it, maybe their IT team's got ISO 27001 certification, for example, but you can be walking around an organization, people have just got like random USBs, or they've got drawings everywhere that are sensitive. That's one level, so it's making sure that you see all of the people in your organization as IT is important, security is important to them. And the second aspect to this is also looking at how, if we start to bring together multiple sets of data, so if we're looking at a digital twin kind of level, there's pieces of data that could be quite innocuous by themselves, but when you start to federate them or amalgamate them, or however you want to call it, bringing them together, they start to become useful for both good and ill purposes, and I don't think we've really sort of tackled this well as an industry so far. So the sixth one, so the top 5 are really sort of recommendations that each individual organization can think about individually. And 6 and 7 are more for the whole industry. So incentivize outcomes, not hours spent on outputs. So it's a really big one. How do we actually think about our contracts to actually reward people for those outcomes? I mean, we're trying to get people to move from that early rates approach, which is a big challenge for the industry. And then the skills gap was another really big one. So skills at all levels. So how do you get the people coming out of universities, for example, to be ready for this change, as well as how do we encourage change within people that are already working in the industry, and seeing as digital as being important to your whole organization. So if you want the full report, as I said, you can go to project13.motmac.com, and we've used a Power BI dashboard, so you can log in you can register for a guest account, and you'll see a sort of screen like this under the Power BI results, and you can click through and drill down to lots of levels of detail against each of the 6 categories. So they're real results. You'll get a dummy set of results if you log in as a guest, and you can compare them to where the rest of the industry is at. So it goes down to that point, decimal point level of accuracy, and yeah, you can scroll through it all at your leisure. So most of the categories, the industry was coming out at kind of like levels 1 to 2. They weren't sort of scoring much above that in most of the categories, which you'd expect, because to get beyond that, you need to have quite a few players in the industry all being able to work in that way. So what's next for us? Well, we finished that, the ICE work, so that's all on the Project 13 website. But we've now taken that data and we've tried to make it a little bit easier for anyone to be able to do this kind of benchmarking exercise. So if you log into index.smartinfrastructure.com, you can get a web-based version of the tool. So it's open to anyone. So you just go in and then you can answer questions. It takes around about 20 minutes to complete. And it then automatically generates a report for you that you can see a snapshot of one typical report there. So it'll give you your results against the other members of the ICG that carried it out. Obviously, they're all anonymized, we carried out the work on behalf of the ICE, but this allows you to then benchmark your own organization and get a little report based on it as well. But other than that, just feel free to contact me if you have any other questions. Thank you.